What's up everybody, my name is Chris and today we're going to be talking about Avatar Legends and specifically how you can balance your combat encounters so your players have a more challenging time without just kicking their ass outright because you're the DM and you can just throw 20 enemies at them and they can do nothing about it. It's great. The problem I'm seeing most people run into is most people are playing this game like they play D&D, a combat simulator game. Enemies in D&D are given this thing called a challenge rating, a CR rating. So in D&D, a CR4 creature is equivalent to 4 level 4 characters fighting it at one time. In Avatar Legends, it's not like that. In D&D, the monsters are stacked stronger against the players to give them challenges. But in Avatar Legends, it's more like evenly balanced. And I would even go as far as to say that the players are overpowered compared to the NPCs for a specific reason. They're the heroes of the story. That's the point about it. They're supposed to be the heroes of this grand adventure that you're crafting for your players and that you're all just going together on. But just because they're the heroes doesn't mean they don't have challenges. So how do we challenge our players whenever they're kind of stacking against our regular NPCs? That's when we call it something called action economy. Action economy is simply described as the number of actions that are happening during any given fight. So if you have 4 players but only 2 NPCs that they're gonna be fighting against, the odds are stacked even more so in the player's side because they get 4 attacks versus the NPCs can only get 2. So either the NPCs can go on the defensive and get basically nothing done, or they just get fatigued and knocked out like that. Neither of those are really challenging for the players. In fact, they're kind of just curb stomping NPCs at that point. It's kind of sad for the NPCs, honestly. They're getting their ass kicked left and right and they can't really do anything about it. So how do we fix that? We up their action economy. Now in D&D, most creatures get multi-attack. They can attack multiple times during their turn. They can do multiple things at one time. Or if they're boss monsters, they get things like legendary actions, legendary resistances, or lair actions. But in this game, there isn't any of that. Everybody gets one move across the board and that's what they get to do. So to offset the action economy in this case, what we need to do is we need to add more NPCs. Add stronger NPCs or just add numbers overall. So for example, those 4 NPCs, if they're going to fight the boss, instead of throwing one really strong boss, what you can do is you can throw one strong boss, but then have them flanked by 4, maybe 5 smaller NPCs. All of a sudden the action economy is in the favor of the enemies, but your players get all their skills and all their different moves that they can do to kind of turn the tide over to their side. Because as soon as they knock one of those NPCs out, the action economy is equalized. And then as they start falling more and more, it's like dominoes. After the first player falls, it's the same way. Action economy is the single biggest defining factor in any given RPG fight across the board. And that's not a hard and fast rule, obviously. You can beat insurmountable odds just by having really, really good rolls or them just rolling really, really badly. There's nothing saying that that can't happen. It's just that in general, if you want to build more challenging encounters for your players, just add more people, add more NPCs that they can't just focus fire onto one individual one. And if they still focus onto the big boss, that's still completely fine. Your NPCs that are around the boss are still gonna be able to provide supporting fire or just supporting healing or whatever have you do it for them. How you do it for them. Hello words. We know what we're gonna be talking about today, of course. And sure, that's the easiest way that you can do it. You can just add more NPCs, but what about if you want more interesting encounters, more memorable ones that are gonna change the tide of the campaign forever? Well, then you're gonna wanna go for environmental or just goal-based wins. Think back to Avatar the TV show. Yes, the first season, way back whenever Aang goes through Avatar Roku's temple. After the solstice is taken care of, after Zhao has his entire fleet right there basically, how do they get out? It's not through sheer force, it's not through this big brawl. It's because Roku caused the volcano to start erupting at that moment. The characters, and in our case, the players, would have environmental things to deal with. The volcano's erupting, so sure, they have to deal with less soldiers now, but they have a new challenge ahead of them. They have to navigate this island as it's literally erupting in this exact moment. So in that case, you can have less NPCs if there's this environmental factor they're also having to fight against, whether it be a rushing river, a timed detonation going off, or a drill drilling through a massive wall. Those are timed events that your players can get into. And one thing you could do is you could set a timer up, and after every move that they do, the timer just ticks down just a little bit more, giving them a sense of urgency with it. But just by adding that one little bit of environmental danger, that changes the entire aspect of it and makes it much more memorable. Because honestly, what's gonna stick out in your player's mind more? Fighting 20 Fire Nation soldiers in a small Fire Nation temple, or fighting 5 Fire Nation soldiers in a Fire Nation temple that is currently being filled with lava because of a volcano eruption? I know which one I'm remembering, and I know which one my parties are remembering a lot more. And lastly, tip number 3, I haven't been counting these at all. The previous ones were tip 1 and tip 2, so here's tip number 3 for you, is provide external goals within a fight. Having an external goal within a fight can break your party apart just a little bit more to make it easier on your NPCs to kind of maybe stand a chance in the slightest bit. So for example, if the NPCs are holding people hostage like the Fire Nation typically does, because that's their only playbook honestly throughout season 1, can't kill anybody, so let's just take them hostage. Throw them in the brig with everything they need to bend. because an airbender can't just breathe air. They had no idea how to deal with an airbender. I just find that fucking hilarious. But in this case, if your NPCs have hostages, you have a player that has to kind of break off from the group and go try to save those hostages. Otherwise, something might happen. They might fall off the deck. They might get pushed into the river. There's a number of things that you could risk with it. There's a number of things they could do. But by adding a simple goal like a hostage, for instance, you can change the dynamics completely, because not only is the fight happening between the NPCs and the players, but the players kind of have to break off from the fight so they can go save those hostages. Otherwise, the NPCs still have the leverage that they are using to begin with. Hell, we see that in season 2 whenever Aang and Toph get kidnapped. That's generally it. Like, these two super powerful benders have been knocked out of the commission because they were kidnapped. And after Toph was released, yes, she said that she could take them all on herself, but Katara and Sokka were knocked out of the fight because they had to go save Aang out of that cage so he couldn't be taken. That knocked them out of the fight where they couldn't, use their actions on enemies, and it left Toph on her own. Granted, she doesn't really need the help to begin with, but in an RPG, you would want all the help you get. Adding external goals is one of my absolute favorite ways that you can just kind of change the dynamics of any given encounter. It's a super easy way that you could just use anything for. It could be anything from rocks are falling, the caves falling in. There could be a timed detonator off to the side. I've heard that one before. But it doesn't matter what it is. It's just something that's there that adds stakes and makes the players kind of think more about their decisions within that combat. They could fight the enemies and try to take them out, or they could try to defuse the situation that's happening in the background. Either way, their focus is divided between two things, and that makes it a lot easier for your NPCs not to get narked. Because let's be honest here, they're all fucked. But anyways, with that all being said, thank you so much for watching this video. I hope you enjoyed it. If you did, click that little subscribe button and that little bell icon to get notified for video uploads. And if you did enjoy this video, maybe you'll like one of the videos that are kind of up here in the screen somewhere. I don't know where it's at this point. But I want to give a massive thank you to my patrons. You guys are the reason I'm able to do these types of videos. And a massive special shout out to my top tier patrons, Corey H, Amaldine Shepard, Rutana, Dark Cerberus, Ethan Hunley, Connor Kendall, and Evan A. Thank you all so much. I wouldn't be able to do this without you. I love you all, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye, everybody.